What if you were a school teacher, and one day, all the students come to school except the ones from your class? Then their parents come to you, asking, "Where are our children?" When you go to look for them, you end up in big trouble. A witch starts following you, and she hypnotizes others to turn them against you. Can Miss Gandhi save the children from her, or will the kids be sacrificed? Find out in this video, so let's begin. The story starts with the voice of a little girl, telling a story. I used to study in a school. Just like every other day, the school was open. As the school day began, students were heading to their classes one by one. But today, something was different. A new teacher had joined the school. Her name was Miss Gandhi. When she entered her classroom, there was no one there, except for one boy named Alex. All the other classes had their students present. Only Miss Gandhi's class was missing. The little girl's voice also reveals something strange. Alex was the only one who didn't disappear. Here's what really happened. At exactly 2:17 a.m., all the children suddenly woke up from their sleep, stood up, and quietly walked out of their homes. They vanished into the darkness. Next, we see all those missing kids, each one of them running towards something. But what? After that, the police questioned extensively. They even checked the cameras installed in the house to make sure the child had not been kidnapped. However, the footage clearly showed that he was leaving on his own. Later, Miss Gandhi was also questioned, but after a month, when the authorities found no evidence, they released Miss Gandhi and reopened the school. After this, we see Miss Gandhi giving a speech in front of the parents of all the missing children. She expressed her sorrow, saying that she too was deeply saddened that the little children, whom she had taught and cared for like her own, had all disappeared. At this point, all the parents become furious, and Miss Gandhi is forced to leave the place. Later, while Miss Gandhi is at the supermarket, she receives a mysterious phone call. The caller warns her to be very careful that night. Afterwards, she gets into her car and drives back home. A little while later, the doorbell rings. When Miss Gandhi goes to check, she finds that there is no one outside. But then, the doorbell starts ringing again, this time louder and more aggressively. Angered, Miss Gandhi rushes outside to check. Once again, no one is there. However, this time she notices something terrifying. The word witch is written across her car. It becomes clear that the families of the missing children were behind this act. The next day, she goes to the school and asks the principal if she can speak to Alex. The principal refuses, and Miss Gandhi leaves, disappointed. Later, as she sits in her car, she notices a group of children playing in front of her. Overcome with emotion, she breaks down in tears, longing for the children who had disappeared. After that, Miss Gandhi meets her ex-boyfriend Paul at a bar. During their conversation, it becomes clear that Donna was the woman because of whom Paul had left Gandhi. But Gandhi was more concerned about learning the truth behind the missing children. Later, as the two of them drive in Paul's car, Gandhi questions him about the children's investigation. Paul, however, refuses to tell her anything. Frustrated, Gandhi leaves. Afterwards, she secretly sneaks into Alex's house. Peering inside, she sees several people gathered there. Terrified, she realizes that something strange and possibly dangerous was going on inside that house. While she is at the market, Donna suddenly grabs her from behind, throwing her to the ground. Donna warns her to stay away from Paul and then pours a bottle of wine over her. Later, Gandhi returns to the school, but the moment she enters her classroom, the ground seems to slip away from under her feet. She is horrified to see all the missing children there, and Alex staring at her with his unnaturally large, frightening eyes. He grins at her in a terrifying way, and Gandhi is overwhelmed with fear, only to suddenly wake up. It had all been a dream. But as she opens her eyes, she looks up and sees a horrifying ghost looming over her. The sight nearly stops her heart, but within seconds, the figure vanishes. The next day, she encounters Alex in person. He nervously warns her to stop following him and then runs away in fear. One night, while Gandhi is waiting outside Alex's house in her car, she eventually dozes off. As she sleeps, a strange woman emerges from the house, holding a pair of scissors. She quietly slips into Gandhi's car and cuts off a few strands of her hair, without Gandhi even noticing. After this, we are shown Archer, whose son Matt had also disappeared from Ms. Gandhi's class, just like the other children. Archer watches old footage on his camera, where he sees his son walking into the darkness. Frustrated with the police's failure, Archer decides to search for his son on his own. After that, Archer goes straight to the police station, demanding to know why his son still hasn't been found and why Miss Gandhi hasn't been arrested yet. The officers explain that they don't have any solid evidence against her and insist that they are doing everything they can. One night, while Archer is re-watching the same footage of his son on the camera, he suddenly sees Matt outside, running. Shocked, Archer rushes out and chases after him, following him to an abandoned house. When Archer looks up at the house, he clearly sees a dark shadow looming over it. Summoning his courage, he steps inside. Inside the house, Archer opens a room door and finds his son sleeping there. Overcome with emotion, he shouts at him, demanding to know where he had gone and whether he realized how worried his father had been. But in the very next moment, the boy's face twists into a terrifying monster. Archer jolts awake. It had only been a dream. Determined, Archer begins visiting the homes of the other missing children. At Derry's house, he reviews the recording of the night his son vanished and marks several points on a map. Slowly, he starts to realize that all the children had been running toward the same place. During this time, he meets with Ms. Gandhi, but before she can explain anything, Marcus suddenly appears, behaving like a madman. He tries to attack Ms. Gandhi. When Archer steps in to protect her, Marcus throws him aside and continues to go after Gandhi. Archer recovers and a brutal fight breaks out between him and Marcus. Meanwhile, Paul is shown on the phone with Donna. She tells him that she will be returning early this Sunday for a birthday celebration and reminds him to take care of himself. Later, Paul meets the chief and accepts an invitation from Monday's dinner, telling him that both he and Donna will be there. The chief simply replies with, "All right." While on patrol, Paul notices a boy peeking into a building. When Paul tries to stop him, the boy runs away. Paul quickly drives after him and manages to catch him. He handcuffs the boy and takes him back to his car for a search. But during the check, something sharp pricks Paul and he begins to bleed. Panic sets in. What if he had made a terrible mistake? In a rush of fear, he knocks the boy unconscious and drops him to the ground. Once inside his car, Paul realizes his body camera had been recording the entire incident. Alarmed, he rushes back, revives the boy, and hurriedly sets him free. Back at the police station, the chief scolds him harshly for his reckless actions, warning Paul to pray the boy doesn't file a complaint. Otherwise, things could get very bad for him. The next day, Paul spots the same boy standing outside the police station. Enraged, Paul follows him in his car, this time turning off his camera so that no one would know. We then shift to James, a man badly addicted to drugs. When his supply runs out, he grows furious, shouting and throwing a fit. Desperate, he calls his friend, begging for money and promising to straighten out his life. He even says he's ready to take up a job, but admits he needs proper clothes for it, asking his friend for help. Later, James attempts to steal items from a parked car to sell, but the buyer refuses to take them. Nearby, he notices posters of the missing children, offering a $50,000 reward for anyone who finds them. Driven by greed, James sneaks into a suspicious-looking place, the same spot where Paul had once caught him before. When the door doesn't open and heavy rain pours outside, James finds a ladder and climbs inside. The house seems empty, so he begins wandering through it. As he searches, he suddenly spots two figures sitting motionless. Horrified, he wonders if they are dead. But when he checks, he realizes they're alive, just unconscious. Relieved, he starts pocketing valuables from the house. Down in the basement, however, James makes a chilling discovery. Dozens of children are being kept there. Terrified, he rushes upstairs, but the two people he saw earlier have now awakened. They spot him and immediately begin chasing after him. Terrified, James panics. Being a thief, he smashes the lock and escapes from the house, selling off all the stolen items afterwards. While making the deal, his eyes fall on the poster behind him, the one about the missing children. The memory hits him like a shock. He had seen all those kids in the basement of that house. He rushes outside and immediately calls the police, but nervously insists that he cannot come to the station himself. On his way, Paul spots him and begins chasing him in his car. This ties back to the earlier scene where Paul had switched off his camera. James runs into the forest to hide and suddenly sees a clown waving at him, laughing eerily and motioning for him to come closer. Terrified, James flees back to his tent. But then, he notices a dark shadow approaching him. In a panic, he stabs himself with several drug injections until the shadow reveals itself to be Paul. Paul rises and points his gun directly at James. Desperate, James blurts out that he knows where the missing children are. At first, Paul doesn't believe him, but James insists, saying they are locked in the basement of a house and he can take him there. Paul's anger softens slightly, and he agrees. Together, they go to the house, and Paul enters inside. Hours pass. Day turns to night, but Paul doesn't come out. Fear grips James, and when Paul finally does return, he looks completely deranged, just like Marcus had when he attacked Miss Gandhi. Without warning, Paul drags James toward the house, forcing him inside. The story then shifts to Marcus, who is sitting in his office when March informs him that someone has come to see him. To his shock, it's the same strange woman James had seen in the forest. She introduces herself as Glattis, claiming to be Alex's aunt. Marcus insists he needs to speak directly with Alex's parents, but Glattis evades the question. When he presses harder, she reluctantly agrees and invites him to her home. Later, when Marcus visits, Glattis starts speaking in a strange, unsettling manner, her words rambling, incoherent, and filled with unease. At the end of their strange meeting, Glattis suddenly asks Marcus if he has called the authorities about Alex. Marcus replies nervously, "Not yet." In an unsettling move, Glattis slices her own hand with Marcus's ribbon, and then, without warning, cuts a lock of his brother's hair. She smears the blood across the ribbon, and in that moment, Marcus falls under her control. Almost instantly, he attacks his own brother, vomiting streams of blood all over him, until he kills him in cold blood. Next, she takes strands of Miss Gandhi's hair, smears them on the ribbon, and breaks the wooden charm in her hand. Marcus, now possessed, sets out to kill Miss Gandhi. But Archer was already nearby. At the last second, he manages to save Miss Gandhi, pulling her away and rushing her into his car. They speed off as Marcus gives chase. Archer follows close behind, trying to protect her. But out of nowhere, another car crashes violently into Marcus. The impact smashes his skull open, blood splattering everywhere, killing him instantly. Later, Archer shows Miss Gandhi his map of the children's disappearance points. To her shock, every mark leads back to one place, Alex's house. From there, the story shifts to Alex's perspective. On the surface, everything seems normal. Alex finishes his classes, and just like always, his father Mason is waiting to pick him up. On the drive home, Mason casually mentions that Alex's aunt will be staying with them for a while. Alex looks disturbed. He never liked her. His mother, Lainey, however, adored her elder sister Glattis, and that love would soon become her downfall. The next day, when Alex finishes school, his father isn't waiting for him. Left with no choice, he walks home alone. But when he arrives, he finds his parents behaving in a strange, unnatural way. Fear creeps in. A few moments later, his aunt Glattis enters the house as well. Alex demands to know what they have done to his parents, but instead of answering, he panics and throws water on them. Shockingly, nothing happens. They remain completely unaffected. Terrified, Alex bolts upstairs. The following morning at breakfast, his parents and Glattis sit calmly at the table as though nothing is wrong. But beneath the surface, something sinister lingers. Glattis leans toward Alex and whispers a chilling threat. If he dares to tell anyone about what is happening, his parents will be killed. From now on, he must do exactly as she says. To make her point clear, she terrifies him with a cruel display of power. Glattis reveals her terrifying power at the breakfast table. With a flick of her ribbon, she casts the same dark magic on Alex's parents. Their bodies twist in agony as they strike and wound themselves, hurting their own flesh under her control. Horrified, Alex begs her to stop and promises to do exactly as she commands. From that day onward, he obeys. He goes to school quietly, avoids speaking to anyone, and keeps his head down. Days pass in silence. Then, one afternoon, Alex finds his aunt collapsed on the floor. She summons him closer and whispers in a weakened voice that her time is running out, that only he can help her. If Alex follows her orders, she promises not only to release his parents, but also to leave the house forever. Terrified but desperate, Alex agrees. Under her instructions, he begins stealing the belongings of the missing children, their toys, their books, their clothes, and hands them over to Glattis each night. She performs her dark ritual on these items, and soon the lost children begin appearing to Alex's house like moths to a flame. In those days, Alex becomes their caretaker. He sneaks them food, comforts them, and tends to their needs while living under the constant shadow of his aunt's power. One evening, Glattis warns him sternly never to step across the line of salt laid outside his door. "It protects you," she tells him in a chilling tone. "If you break it, they will take you." Meanwhile, outside, Archer and Miss Gandhi have been watching Alex's house from a safe distance, sitting quietly in their car. After hours of surveillance, they are startled when Paul suddenly steps out of the house. Gandhi immediately recognizes him. Without wasting a second, they decide to go inside. The moment they enter, chaos erupts. Paul lunges at Gandhi, attacking her savagely. He nearly kills her before she slashes his skin open with a sharp pillar shard, enraging him further. His hands wrap tightly around her throat, squeezing the life from her. On the other side of the room, Archer is ambushed as well. He is hurled violently across the floor, but he forces himself back up, grappling with his attacker. Both their lives hang by a thread. Even Alex isn't spared. The intruders break through his door, cornering him where he has no escape. Desperate, Gandhi grabs Paul's pistol and empties the barrel straight into his head, dropping him dead on the spot. She quickly turns and finishes James as well, ensuring neither can rise again. Downstairs, Archer frantically searches for his son Matt in the shadows of the house. But before he can reach him, he comes face to face with Glattis herself. Her eyes burn with unholy fire as she lunges at him, unleashing the full force of her dark magic. Alex eventually discovers his aunt's cursed staff. He had seen how she used it, smearing her blood on it, wrapping strands of her hair around it, and controlling people with its dark power. Determined to end her reign, Alex smears his own blood on the staff, binds it with her hair, and snaps it in half. The effect is immediate. The spirits and children she once controlled turn against her, chasing her through the house. Glattis senses the danger and tries desperately to escape, but the horde follows her relentlessly. She runs, smashing through doors and clawing for freedom, but it's no use. A woman grabs her from behind, and within seconds, the rest crash through the windows, surrounding her from all sides. Glattis can see her death coming with terrifying clarity. At the same time, Archer still has Gandhi in his grasp, trapped under the last traces of the spell, while Alex struggles to keep the horde under control. But then, the inevitable happens. The children tear Glattis apart, shredding her body into pieces. Blood splatters across the walls, her screams cut short as her dark life is finally ended. With Glattis gone, her magic dissolves instantly. Archer snaps back into himself, freed at last. Desperate, he rushes to search for his son. Following faint footsteps, he finally finds Matt alive. At the same time, Alex is reunited with his parents, who are freed from Glattis' control. Together, they leave the cursed house behind, abandoning the city for a new life far away, hoping never to face such horrors again. And that is where this terrifying journey ends. If you enjoyed this chilling story, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Otherwise, who knows? Maybe a curse will find its way to you too. See you in the next video. Until then, take care.